Special guy, Glenn Cook, joining us here on the show, the assistant general manager of your Cleveland Browns. Glenn, thanks for joining us.
Appreciate it.
So what went
He is special, by the way. He is very special.
Oh, he is. He is certainly something.
I don't feel like these are compliments.
No, he is magnificent, Glenn. You were right about that. So what went into some of these decisions here with Carson and with Quinshon?
I think, I was just talking about it. I think ultimately we stepped back and just said, hey, how do we maximize these opportunities that we have? Obviously, we traded down yesterday, added a pick today. So, kind of put us in pole position at the start of day 2 to take 2 of the first 5 players, in the second round. And like I said, I said it downstairs. Some people probably are surprised with how they think Cleveland approaches, drafting, for us to take 2, what you would say,
defensive tackle, off-ball linebacker.
Yeah, and even running back, honestly, but it's just really about trying to maximize and get the most impactful players. Look, we want these guys to play a long time, and if you can get impact at any position, it really, really changes your team. And the more of those you have, the more of those guys you can acquire, it's only going to help you. So that was kind of just a simple thought process. We didn't overthink it. Hopefully we didn't overthink it, but just really excited about it. These 2 studs, man, 2 tough. Like we play in the FC North. Quinshon, extremely strong. Carson, this dude's all over the field. And he's still just getting started. Really only played 1 year, 1 full season. Kind of took a seat and waited and took his turn and continued to push in the way they talked about him at UCLA. Seemed like he was ready to go 2 years ago. So we're excited.
When you talk about Quinshon, who's somebody like a lot of people when you go on evaluations, you have like somebody that he reminds you of. Who's somebody? I've heard I've heard Kareem Hunt.
Yeah. That's the first name that comes to mind. He's just tough, man. Like he's just the way he's built and runs. Honestly, it is a lot like Kareem. You see him bounce off people on the field. He delivers a blow just as much as he's taking it. The dude it's the brand that you want. Like he's physical. I'm excited about it because he's just a physical dude. And like I said, you're playing Baltimore. Those dudes are bringing it. Pittsburgh. Like since he gets after us, like our division is not for the faint of heart. So we knew we needed to address the position in some way, and we still have work to do across the roster, including that position. But to have an opportunity to take him there, seemed like a no-brainer.
And as much,
go ahead.
As much as you can take us behind the scenes, do you go to bed at night knowing you have the first pick in the second round that's your guy, or does something develop through the course of the day to make you get to that determination that who you took for this first pick in the second round?
There's targets, right? Like, even as the close of the first round was happening, you're sort of saying to yourself, like, hey, there's a few guys that could be there that we'd be really excited about. And so that's one piece of it. And then the next part, obviously, is just making sure you maximize all parts of the asset, bundle, and step back and say, like, hey, okay, are any of these trade opportunities, if we have some, worth, moving off the spot, or how do we sequence this to make sure we get the guys that we want, or at least give ourselves the best chance? So, yeah, it's obviously sometimes the eval part is a little bit clearer, cut and dry, but you do got to take it to the full length of the process. So I think we did that. Yeah, you go to sleep feeling good about your options, especially when you're picking a spot we were, but we still took our time.
Browns assistant general manager Glenn Cook joining us on the show. One quick update. The New Orleans Saints at pick 40 just took quarterback Tyler Shook from Louisville. So he is off the board. We'll talk about him a little bit later on. Another quarterback off the board before Shedeur Sanders. Nathan, go ahead.
First of all, Glenn, I appreciate your special comment earlier, and I will say you are a special vault because Glenn came on day of the draft on Cleveland Browns Daily and knew things were in the works that nobody else knew about. Not even a hint of a tip-off. So if you ever have a secret and you need to tell somebody, Glenn Cook is your guy.
I got a whole childhood to tell you about, my friend. I did some wild things. Go ahead.
I was just saying.
I think I've heard from your Akron days. You're a wild man.
Wild man. Yeah, he had to go to a bush of shame from time to time. That's how the story goes. I asked Catherine this earlier, and obviously, look, we had picks 5, 33, and 36. No quarterback was selected by the Cleveland Browns. So was the trade with Jacksonville made with an eye of, okay, we got that first-round pick because we're really more in on next year's quarterback crop or the flexibility to be on it than we were this year?
I think it's just really we just evaluate the trade. Like obviously you do consider, maybe potentially where the pick ends up,
Sure.
But you're not getting too deep into the weeds of like, hey, we're going to be able to target this specific player. There's a whole.
Sure.
I mean, now we're 12 months away from being in the same position, and you just don't know what could happen. Guys get hurt, guys improve a lot. We're talking about Carson. He would not have been a draft pick at this time last year, but now
Cam Ward wouldn't have been the number one pick in the draft this time.
So like, there's you can't over assess that component of it. It really came down to just the trade in and of itself, and it was just for us such great value that we had to do it.
Yeah.
And Glenn, you talk about the grades that you give guys. How long do those grades stay with guys once they are in the league?
In what way?
In the sense that, okay, you had a rating of a guy coming out of college. Does that stick with him, or does it change once he hits the NFL?
I mean, I think it mostly just disappears, and I say mostly, obviously, you spend a significant amount of resources on a player. You want to make sure you give them the best chance to succeed. But ultimately, like, once they get here, this is a grown man's game. So, you got to show up, you got to compete. Like, from Carson, he's our 33rd pick, to our pick in the 6th round. Like, both guys are going to have to come in, compete, play hard, earn their opportunities. Like, nothing's handed to, as like in this league. So really, I think it disappears pretty quickly, and everybody realizes like everyone's trying to eat, for lack of better terms, when you get to the NFL. So yeah, I wouldn't say it sticks too long.
I know we move our linebackers around, and flexibility is important, but long term, you envisioning him as a Mike linebacker?
I don't know. Yeah, we'll see. Like, that's really up to. So I know Swartz is really just excited about the IQ in and of itself. Like, he's such a smart kid. I think his ability to play in coverage and his versatility is not only is a big guy, he's 240 pounds. I mean, he can run, he's quick, and also just his football awareness and ability to play on all 3 downs is very valuable. But we'll try to. I said it downstairs. We'll try to maximize our best combination of players on the field. So if we need him to play Sam, if we need him to be a Will in nickel or be the dime Mike, like, he'll do as much as he can and as much as we need him to.
How important was physicality coming into this draft? Because it just feels like the first 3 picks reek of physicality.
You know how Swartz is, like, he wants to mess stuff up for keeping it clean for the kiddos. So like, yeah, like, it's just, we want to play a certain way on defense. In order to do that, you need to go get certain types of guys. So like, having honestly, like, 2 players on defense, and really, like, I think of Quinshon like that. I mean, dude's a hammer, you know, like, he's tough, he's physical. So again, it's the AFC North, when you're having snow and 20 miles per hour winds, like, the game's going to be played a certain way,
right?
And you got to understand that, and you got to balance it out where you're building for those elements just as well as being in the shootout sometimes.
And Glenn, we talk so much about collaboration and its importance. How much do you guys talk to the coaches about the players and their input in the evaluation?
Yeah, it's crazy because, like, I mean, this really starts, early February, where we'll get together as scouts and have our quote unquote what we call draft meetings and kind of go through our assessments and really just dump all the information we have, and then from there it's really that's when we're bringing the coaches into the fold. We're giving them lists and sort of some directions on who to connect and talk to at the combine, and then we're bringing guys in for 30 visits, and honestly the 30 visits are 90% the coach's time. Like, they're getting their hands on the players, really drilling down to, like, hey, how does he learn? What are going to be our concerns with this, or like how much can he handle, because he can take so much on. So like they play a big part in making us feel comfortable about it, because a lot of times it does come down to fit, and you having someone who believes in you and who's going to teach you and coach you and connect and can get you to sort of maximize what is in you. Like, if you have coaches that don't feel great about the players that you bring in, sometimes it just sometimes it doesn't work. So we definitely collab a lot with the staff, and they did a great job. But this is like an important off season for us, and I think they played a pivotal role.
You guys go through a lot of simulations in your preparation. We talked about that on I guess that was that just yesterday?
Just yesterday.
Yeah, it feels like a week ago.
2-3 days. I know. That's crazy.
So yesterday we talked about those simulations. Was this a scenario? Has it fallen kind of chalky in terms of the way the board has gone from what you guys expected, and this haul of 3 players? Is this kind of
I'd say the Hall was one of them. You know what I mean? Like, the Hall was one of them for sure.
Yeah.
I don't know that it played out exactly like maybe how we simulated, but yeah, there's so much information floating around these days in the league. Like you can get a pretty decent sense of what could happen, and so we were positioned to think about this scenario for sure.
Do you guys keep track of everything that you hear, and then you find out like what you've heard was actually true, so that you can be like, oh, they're more reliable narrators?
Not to that extent, but I think we do have a good sense of like who has a good pulse, right? Like there's some people who have information and have a good pulse on what's happening, and you can probably trust theirs a little bit more. And then there's others where you hear it, you sort of just you log it, but you don't maybe give it as much credence.
That's probably a pretty fun part
Yeah.
of this, though, is trying to like.
It could be fun, but it could be a little bit wild where you're. I mean, when there's so many things just flying around, and like one team's trading up from said pick to go get certain player, and then 5 minutes later, someone else is saying that they're trading down because they don't like any. So again, you do got to take it a little bit with a grain of salt, but. We've come to find that there's a certain sect of people who have a pretty good sense, and it's helpful, it's useful. It's not perfect, but it's useful.
Sure.
Glenn, we'll let you get back with the Scouts. Thank you very much for the time. Good luck the rest of the weekend.
Appreciate it.